There are different types of racism. There are two main ones we should identify: interpersonal racism and systemic racism. When an individual uses hurtful language like the N-word or has biased beliefs, we can say that interpersonal racism has occurred. This is also known as prejudiced behavior. Systemic racism, on the other hand, refers to the ways in which institutions like schools, governments, hospitals, and courts might disadvantage particular racial groups. The distinction between the two types has to do with power. While anyone may engage in interpersonal racism, systemic racism can only be enacted by racial groups who hold power in society. Accordingly, many believe that those who have historically been oppressed by slavery might engage in prejudice behavior or interpersonal racism, but given their relative lack of power, they are unable to engage in acts of systemic racism.
A very good evening to you, and thank you so much for your time. You are calling on Judge Mokoatlheng to reflect deeply on his statements last week. He's done so. He's issued a heartfelt apology. Are you convinced?
It's a tough one. Good evening. It's a tough one, Bongwe. The only problem is that this is the second time this very same judge is doing this. And therefore, it really is worrisome, I must say that. But, we are not an unforgiving people. I made the remark earlier somewhere else that, we have, as black people, who have even forgiven people who never asked for our apology. So, it's a difficult one. So I think that Pabasa's position will be that we're happy that we called out racism. We will continue to do so. We'll never get tired of calling out racism. And to that extent, the judge did the right thing upon reflection. And we want to thank the people, his family members, his wife, and all those people who prevailed on him to do the right thing. The point of the matter is that you cannot tolerate that kind of crass racism from the bench. Well, you cannot tolerate it from anywhere, for that matter, but more so from the bench of South Africa, which is a representative of our people and the custodian of the Constitution. And therefore, the judge must reflect really on what steps he must take to rehabilitate himself from this kind of what seems to be a deep-seated belief in the inferiority of black people.
What steps would you propose?
Well, that's between him and his God. I think he must just reflect on the kind of hate that is repeatedly being caused. And to the extent that the apology was directed at the people of South Africa, the people of South Africa will decide if they forgive him. But for our part, we can only say that not only he, but any other people in those positions who are harboring racist thoughts, maybe he verbalized what other people are thinking. But to the extent that he verbalized them, then it's very regrettable.
He says, though, that for him, this is out of character. He says in the decades that he's practiced, he's never held this view, and does even admit that they would have been, these remarks would have been very hurtful towards his late son as well. And I know that you, as an organization, had called on the judge president to speak to him. He did say that the judge president and the deputy judge president spoke to him. But then you were also speaking about the JSC looking at this particular matter. Are you satisfied with the fact that he's spoken to the judge president and the deputy judge president, or are you still looking at the Judicial Service Conduct Commission, route here, or does it end?
Well, we will have the apology only came today. I think before the end of the week, we will reflect on that and take a position. But as I say, to the extent that he was counseled by his fellow judges and the leadership, we obviously are pleased about that. And saying that he should do more than that, if possible, to reflect on his own conduct. And let me say this, Bongiwe. I know Judge Ratha Mokoatlheng personally. When I was an attorney, he was one of our senior attorneys that we looked up to. So I know him at a personal level. And I could say that I never thought he had this side to his character. So, to the extent that he regrets it, we hope that it's a lesson. It's not personal. It's not about him. It's not about how we feel personal about him. We will call out racism whenever it shows its ugly head in South Africa. And it must be called out for what it is, and all racists lurking out there behind any veil must know that we will not tire.
I'm going to stay with your personal, knowledge of him. In all the time you've known him, is he a man that's known to have said things like this?
Absolutely not. As I say, he comes from the stock of attorneys that was just before us, who really bore the brunt of racism from magistrates and from judges, from apartheid courts. So it's very disappointing from that perspective. At some stage, he was an activist even in the legal circles. So we just don't know what got into him. The problem is that we are so damaged ourselves that we start to internalize our own oppression and have self-hate, and we need to unlearn the kind of racial abuse that has been meted out to black people. So this is a much deeper problem. There are people much more qualified than me who have diagnosed, if you like, the kind of deep-seated racism that gets embedded in the victims of racism.
And one wonders then, in light of all of this, because he is saying that the lawyers of the accused are free to even bring an application for his recusal if need be. So does the association that you belong to think that he's still fit to continue?
Well, that's a very difficult question which cannot be answered in the abstract. The issue of recusal is a particular type of procedure which is based on the interest of the litigant, not even the victims of whatever racism or anything else. But the litigant, if the litigant feels that they will not get justice from a particular judge, then an application will be made. And I'm confident that Judge Mokoatlheng, as he indicated, would entertain such an application on its own merits. So one cannot preempt it. Let me just say this from my own experience. It happens that sometimes a judge does something which you, as a lawyer, you just tell the client, judges do this and so on. But if the client insists that, well, you might understand it as a lawyer, but I don't accept it, then you are compelled professionally to make the recusal application, having made having given the advice. So lawyers are more resilient in a way, because we've been abused and insulted and all sorts of things by judges and all sorts of people who might want to abuse the power and their office. But the test is not the lawyer's feelings or ill feelings or whatever. It's the client, it's the litigant.
How common is it? Because you say that you've been abused, but how common is such a picture in a court of law? I know this is playing out in full view of the public, but other cases wouldn't be.
Yeah, well, this kind of abuse is not common, I must say. It used to be common. I mean, when I practiced in the 80s and the 90s, if I told you some of the stories, you would think I'm making it up. So there was more open racism even from the bench. I mean, I once had a very unfortunate discussion with a judge in chambers. But I told him off, and we had our thing, and it was buried there. I'm sure if he's not alive, he went to the grave with what I had told him about his racism. But so this was more prevalent. Sometimes it was subtle, particularly in the magistrate's court. But now it's if it is there, I'm sure it is there. The racism everywhere, but it's much more hidden.
So just before I let you go, when you look at the profession itself, there are very many issues, especially of transformation, that are still spoken about. And one wonders if there is going to be such an utterance that is made, what kind of consequences does it have, particularly on the issues of transformation within the judiciary?
Very, very important question that, Bongwe. You know, I'm a big believer. When I sat in the JSC, this is something I said day in, day out, that transformation is not just about pigmentation or gender, or, you know, you can have somebody who has internalized gender discrimination as a woman. You can have a person who has internalized racism who's black. And so transformation at that level, yes, it's important, the demographic thing, but it has to go deeper, and people have to be educated continuously to unlearn some of the stereotypes that have been created in South Africa. And maybe this, if there's a positive side to this, I can't see it much, but if there is, maybe it brings that debate up. Very important. What do we really mean by transformation? Is it just bean counting, 20 black, 5 women, and so on? Or is it a much more internal transformation in the true sense of seeing the world through the prism of the Constitution? And I think we're very far from that.
All right, and I'll leave you to. Thank you so much for
at Judges Matter now. Zikona, let's get your immediate reaction then to what you've just heard there, perhaps by the judge.
Thank you for having me. We definitely welcome the apology by Judge Mokoatlheng, and we believe that it's important for judicial officers, judges, magistrates to acknowledge when they are in the wrong and tender an apology, because that on its own speaks volumes about the kind of judicial officer the person is, and it also prevents complaints being laid against judicial officers when it's not necessary. So we definitely welcome the apology by the judge, and we are happy that he has tendered his apology.
Does this go to some sense of credibility of his as well, to try and remain impartial? Because one might say to themselves, well, I don't think this judge then would actually have a fair sense of Mr. Mnisi as well here, because it was the outburst that he had against him initially, you remember, when he needed more time in order to get more data on this case, and now it's this, etc. I mean, the advocate himself may feel targeted.
Well, I think that would be a subjective view of the advocate, but from our standpoint, we do not think that should be the perception of the judge. The judge has apologized. Yes, he had an outburst in court, and it was not the first time. The first time last year in March, he did apologize, and now he has apologized. So what we're hoping for is that there will be no more outbursts in the case, and that the case will run smoothly. But as the judge has said, if any of the advocates that are in the matter representing the accused in the matter feel that the judge is biased, or there would be a perception of bias, they can bring an application for his recusal, for him to recuse himself. So that is an option that the judge has also given to the advocates. So that also speaks to the credibility of the judge. He has seen that he has done something wrong, and he has apologized for it. So we really don't think that any of the advocates should feel targeted by the judge, and especially considering that.
No, please continue. Sorry, I thought you were done. My apologies.
I was going to say, especially considering that the Senzo Meyiwa case has been running for years, and all those involved in the case are definitely frustrated. So also considering that, we don't think that any of the advocates should feel targeted by the judge.
So are there mechanisms in place to assist judges in cases that are long-standing like this, where complaint after complaint could be held, they go on for lengthy periods of time, and ultimately they still need to remain impartial, they still need to be the calm heads in the court case, as it were, then as well. They need to be the calm heads in the courtroom. What mechanisms are in place to ensure that continues to be at play and happens?
Well, I wouldn't say that there are any specific mechanisms that are in place, but as we heard from the judge at the beginning of his apology, he's been on the bench for decades. He's been an attorney in practice prior to that for decades. So when you become a judge, you're already trained to remain impartial, to remain level-headed, to be unbiased, and to ensure that you deal with matters that are before you properly in terms of the code of conduct. So there are no specific mechanisms, but the training of lawyers, advocates, attorneys, and judges prepares one to remain impartial and level-headed.
Yeah, so in your sense, then, the reprimand, the public apology, enough then to restore public trust in the judge and how the court case will fare?
Definitely. I think it's very important that when one, as I've said, when one has seen that they've made a mistake or they've uttered words that are uncalled for, unnecessary, racist, with racist undertones, they do apologize for those. So we do think that an apology at this point should suffice, and that none of the advocates should feel that the judge will be biased against them. We would say it would definitely be something different if the judge had not apologized and had maintained the comments that he had made last week.
Yeah. Racial sensitivity, should there be a kind of training on something like that then for judges? Only because it could impact and affect different people in different ways. And while one may think, oh no, this wasn't as harsh, somebody else may see it differently.
No, definitely what the judge had said on last week on Thursday, it was harsh. It was uncalled for, as we've said before. It was uncalled for, it was unnecessary, and we don't think that there's anything that should warrant such comments, especially comments of that nature coming from a person sitting on the bench, especially also considering our history in South Africa. So definitely, judges do, there's SAJE, and that provides training for judicial officers. But we do, as judges matter, always encourage judges and magistrates, judicial officers, to undergo sensitivity training where they are sensitized to the issues that they might not be aware of. So we do believe that such trainings should continue. SAJE should continue such trainings, and any other trainings of that nature that are available, judicial officers should undertake them.
Yeah, I mean, because my big concern as well, I suppose, at this point would be what this means to anybody looking to be a judge, younger people in judicial officers who are looking at a scenario like this and wondering whether that is the conduct that ultimately is okay, especially for somebody who's been on the bench for as long as he has.
Well, I think we must also, at this point, not generalize the conduct of Judge Mokoatlheng to mean that is the conduct of all judges, because that is not the case. And as he said, it's not the kind of person that he is. So the conduct of judges is definitely not what we saw last week or what we saw last year in March when there was the first comment by Judge Mokoatlheng. And anyone who would want to join the bench should not generalize the conduct of judges to be similar to what we saw last week. So we definitely don't think that Judge Mokoatlheng's comments last week depict the views of the judiciary. I think it would be amiss for anyone to think like that.
Yeah. Just very finally, how can judges maintain their sense of impartiality, their fairness, while also taking into account that socio-political context, or just the social context in which South Africa operates in?
So judges are meant to deal with cases that come before them, or judicial officers. So, for example, with the comments that were made last week, the judge just went too far. When the advocate made the request to be excused, yes, the advocate was in the wrong because it was so late. He could have made the request weeks before, but he didn't do that. But the judge went too far because he made the comments, and it was not necessary for him to make those racial comments at that point. Yes, and especially considering that he had declined the request in any event. So it is important for judges and all judicial officers to deal with cases or matters that are before them impartially and always remain level-headed. Yes, there are frustrations. The matter has been going on for years, and there have been various requests from the advocates. But again, as I've said before, that does not warrant comments with racial undertones.
Yeah.
And as judges matter, we definitely welcome the apology, and we are hoping that there will not be any further outbursts.
Yeah, this is a very interesting scenario, I think, as well. There.
Yeah, there's one thing I must attend to. All of us, I suppose, we read newspapers. This is proper that I should address this issue. But initially I want to say I have been 26 years on the bench as an acting judge, and as a judge I have never, ever, ever behaved the way I did on Friday. And I've been 30 years as an attorney. Before I became a judge, 30 years I was an attorney. I spoke to the JP, and the JP spoke to me together with the DJP. And the JP rightfully excoriated me for my conduct, that it is not befitting of a judge of my experience and stature, that I should have behaved like I did. And I agree. My conduct was questionable and incorrect. And my wife also, who I thought, young Sarah is afraid of me, told me that I should apologize to the whole of South Africa because I am worse than the attorneys who apparently steal the monies of clients in the RAF matter. She was reading a paper the other day about the fact that attorneys apparently, and they're colorless, stole about 1.5 billion of RAF funds which belong to clients. And I wish now to tender my sincerest apologies. It's contra my nature to do that. I have a son, he just died recently, who's an advocate. He's older than you, Ms. Mshololo. He was born in 1968. He died because of lymphatic cancer. I think he would have also have been disappointed at my conduct. That's why I say I heartily and unreservedly, with no qualification, apologize to my colleagues here, to the accused. They say I mustn't call you the accused. They are correct. The gentleman in front of me. And I've also been accused of being a racist. I want to just talk one or two things about me as a person without being a lawyer. I grew up in the house of Moses Kotane. Nelson Mandela used to come at home. Walter Sisulu, even Robert Sobukwe, before he broke away from the ANC. My father was involved as a member of the ANC and the Communist Party. He would be mortified to hear that I am a racist. And another thing which you may not know, my great-grandmother was a German. She was born in Bochum. Apparently he met some German priest, meaning my grandmother was a German. And I recall that she used to cut her hair chop it short so that people mustn't realize that she's got white blood. So I know everything about racism. I grew up also under the tutelage of the late Bishop Tutu. I was talking to his son, Trevor, yesterday at the seminary. So if you want to know me, whether I'm a racist or not, you can ask, for instance, Archbishop Thabo Makgoba, Father Mkhatshwa, Professor Lisiba Tefu, Professor Seth Cooper, Professor Bani Pichana. I used to be a member of SASO. We founded SASO 1968. I wasn't a leading light, but at Fort Hare, I was the secretary of the branch there. I can confirm that with Judge Selby Bakwa, who's here. And subsequently, I became a member of the Black People's Convention after the ANC was banned. And subsequently, I became a member of AZAPO, and I was the Secretary for Legal Affairs and Sport when Mrs. Kware was the president of AZAPO. I cut my teeth in politics together with Cyril Ramaphosa. He was my junior, actually, in politics. And I mean, I was tutored by people like Thabo Mbeki. You'd be shocked to hear that I'm a racist. So if people say I'm a racist, maybe I'm not aware of that. But if I trampled on anybody's toes because of my racism, despite being an adherent to the Freedom Charter, 1955, I was there in Kliptown with my father. I wish to apologize for being a racist. I'll try and mend my ways, but I can tell you, it's not a conscious thing about me to be a racist. So I apologize. And the gentleman in front of me, if you believe that I, as a judge, I'm so useless, dumb, baluka, muhu, etc., and you think you can't get a fair trial from me, please tell me. I'll recuse myself. I don't want to impose myself on people who doubt my integrity, honor, and dignity. And I mean it. If you think this judge, the way he's a racist, the way he doesn't care for the Constitution, he's not fit to be our judge, please tell me, and I'll recuse myself. Yeah, so that is the apology. My wife actually said to me, I must apologize even to the people of South Africa. And then I asked him jokingly, even the undocumented foreigners, he says, everybody. So I wish to apologize even to the politicians, because I'm told even politicians are worried about me. They want to summon me to parliament. Don't know for what. And most graciously, I want to apologize to the Chief Justice Maya, to Chief Justice Zondo, to Chief Justice Mokoatlheng, and to all his colleagues. In particular, for instance, Dikgang Moseneke, Willie Seriti, because those are the contemporaries I started with. And I was also phoned by persons I've tutored as attorneys and advocates. Some of them are on the bench. Some of them are at the Constitutional Court. they were also shocked that I'm a racist. Okay, so I hope you accept my apology. And I also want to apologize to all the judges, all the magistrates, all the prosecutors, all the students who are studying law, even those who are not studying law, all the religious leaders, and anybody in South Africa who felt slighted and felt insulted, as the newspapers are saying, by my conduct. Okay, yes, Mr.
Family, we are back again. Let's talk about what happened in court. And I just want to touch a little bit, few things that I think the judge or Ratha did not apologize. And his apology looked like it was fake because of the way he apologized. What he brought up there on his so-said apology, he tried to make us understand that he was sorry for his utterance of racism on black people, more especially South Africans, and he even uttered some kind of stupid utterances of saying black people cannot run the country. And because I understand everybody is talking about he has uttered this kind of racism twice. According to my following on this court proceedings, he did it last time to Mgomezulu, and he did it to Mnisi, and he repeated to Mnisi. When he repeated to Mnisi, it's when he talked about white people are drinking tea, laughing at black people because they cannot run the country. That was for the third time. So I've heard a lot of people talking about it. He has said it twice. And due to the fact that he did apologize for the first time and repeating it, it's a sign of impersonal racism that he has in him. Because impersonal racism, it comes in form of how black people were enslaved. Because it's when you realize that this is the kind of racism that he's suffering from and he needs to work on it. I did like what Dalimpofu said in an interview in SABC, that it's up to him how he wants to adjust, because it's not somebody or any doctor that will come and help him. That to stop this kind of utterances of racism, you need a kind of medication or whatever. There's no medication that can stop that, because it's him. He has to work on himself and understand that you don't just open your mouth anyhow, more especially in the seat that he's using there in the court as a judge. He's a mirror to young children who are still planning for their future, to think about, hey, I wish to be so and so, or to your family, your grandchildren who sees your good work. So if you are not that kind of a mirror, then a lot of people will be questioning, to be a judge, it means you have to be somebody like this. It's a very bad picture that he has painted. Because injustice, justice is not a revenge, but it's a closure, whereby you make people have closure as to how this happened. Those people who are waiting on the other side, they just want to know how their son was his life was deleted. But coming to this, telling us about your connections, because your apology, you were coming in there to show us how much connected you are. We remember very well as we follow the case that normally you used to tell the defense that they can take you to appeal. You hope they can be successful because you know that you are connected on the other side. There's nobody who can do anything to you. That is what you are implying. And this thing was always in your mouth, and it's still in your mouth, even up to date. Because you keep on, when you get confrontation with the defense, when they try to make you understand they're driving a certain point for their clients, you take it personally. Then it's when you start to bring up and you become a defense. At the same time, you become a witness. At the same time, you just everything. You're a judge in that court. And I'm surprised that the JP, who said he never saw anything wrong to you, is the one who has advised you to apologize. It is surprising because the news broke out that this is what because internet was flooded with everything that the judge has done. But at the end of it, the JP, there was an utterance that he made that he didn't see anything wrong that Judge Ratha did. But all of a sudden, there's a somersault that you have to apologize. I've never heard of something like that. Because the JP, it means, is one of the syndicates. We have to face the facts because the country is in this crisis now because of our justice system. There's so much crime that is going on, so much stealing and everything because of what this justice system is doing. Look at the case of Cholote. The same NPA went to lie in the US to bring back Cholote. All of a sudden, Cholote is out of the hook. What was the reason for them to go and lie to the US just to ruin this lady's reputation, embarrassing her in the whole world? That is the work of the NPA. Why? Why? Because Ratha, on what he has done, this was going to be a good example to all judges that if you behave this way, this is how we go. Because of his connections, nobody can, because it's what he did when he was trying to say he was apologizing. He was telling us about the people he is connected to, Mandela, Mbeki, all these kind of people, some in the judiciary. You just shake your head and it's like, what is this guy talking about? Does he know the damage that he has done? Why is not just, and the fact that, you know, I took a moment to and listen to him when he talked about his wife, that he thought his wife is scared of him. Your wife, Mr. Ratha, should be your friend, whereby when you're out of the stress of this court and everything, you go home and rest and sit down with your wife, share whatever you have to share, is your friend. But if you are you were telling us that at home you are a lion, you are fighting, it means that there's a lot of, how can you tell the world that you thought your wife, who is supposed to be your best friend, you are telling us that your wife, you thought she was scared of you? I don't know whether you heard yourself. Why did you bring up all these things? That is the slip of a tongue every time you talk. That's how you talk with the defense in court. You belittle them, you show them that they are just nothing to you because of your connections. You think you've got power. That is not the way it should be. Be impartial in court and understand each and every. Don't side with the state, because your job is to listen and understand what is going on in court. Why are these 5 accused in court? Is there any case against him? Let the state show you, prove the case beyond reasonable doubt that these people that were arrested are the right people who are here before you. So you can pass your judgment. Not to find your nose, every time you find your nose in there, you're poking your nose everywhere where you are not supposed to do that. There was a lot of tension when Mgomezulu was there for accused number 1. Now again, a lot of tension because Nisi is trying to make sense, to make you understand that this case is fabricated, but you don't want to understand that. It means you are part of the mafia, the cabal. Please, can you just sit down and try to reason in everything? DNA, the head that they swap, DNA didn't include. Ntanzi was said he had a gold tooth. Now it's shifted to number accused number 3, but it was Ntanzi before, and he was taken to the dentist. All these kind of things. And the gun, eyewitnesses are saying the gun had a wheel, but you don't want to take what they're saying. You want to believe in what is being fabricated by the Baibaloi and the Kininda. What is that? Just reason about this case. I wish Zakona Ndlebe could follow the case and see your behavior, how you behave when you're in court, how the things that you say to lawyers there. I wish those people who were trying to side with you can sit down now when the case starts and try to follow it, because it's live, so that they can understand that your behavior is not good in that court. I rest my case there. Family, what do you think about the apology for this judge? Did he apologize, or he came to brag to us to tell us he's so connected to everybody, those high profile people? I think he has to think twice about this. Family, drop your comment with respect. Ngiyandithanda nonke ngothando lwami, ngithi abantu bakithi noma izindlu zodala kusekhaya la, let's fix our justice system. Bravo.